everyone, and welcome to today's video lesson on adding and subtracting real numbers. Our objective is to be able to add and subtract negative and positive numbers both with and without models. So we're going to start with a couple of different methods using models. Our first method is to draw integer tiles. An integer tile is basically just a square that we draw with a negative in the center or a positive in the center that represents the numbers in the problem. So for example A, we see that we have negative 8 plus 3. We have 8 negatives, so we're going to draw 8 negative tiles. Now plus 3 means positive 3, so we have 3 positive tiles. The key to this is that for every negative, a positive will cancel it. So negative and positive cancel. We have 3 positives, so we should be able to cancel 3 of the negatives. That leaves us with 5 extra negative tiles. Therefore, negative 8 plus 3 is negative 5. Now let's look at another example. In example B, notice that we have negative 4 minus 2. In this case, all of our tiles are going to be negative. So we start with negative 4 and we draw 4 negative tiles. A minus sign acts as a negative sign, so we draw 2 more negative tiles. In this case, none of the tiles cancel, so we just end up combining them together. We have a total of 6 negative tiles. So negative 4 minus 2 is negative 6. Now that I've done a couple for you, what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to try example C and example D, and just pause the video for a moment while you're doing that. Okay, now that you've had a chance to do that, let's look at those together. Negative 3 minus 7, we're going to start by drawing 3 negative tiles and then 7 more negative tiles. In this case, we again can't cancel anything, so we end up combining them together, and we now have a total of 10 negative tiles. In example D, we started with 2 positive tiles and 8 negative tiles. We cancel the 2 positives with the 2 negatives, and there are 6 negative tiles left. So 2 minus 8 is negative 6. That was just one method that we can use. The second method we can use is to draw number lines. Notice I have number lines that go from negative 10 to positive 10. When I use a number line, I simply start at 0 and then I follow with the numbers. So the first number says to go to negative 8, so I start at 0 and I go to the left 8 units. Now I want to add 3, which means from the negative 8, go to the right 3 units. Notice that I end at negative 5. So negative 8 plus 3 is negative 5. Now let's look at example B again. We have negative 4 minus 2. So starting at 0, we go to the left 4. And now from there we want to go 2 more to the left. Notice that puts us at negative 6. So negative 4 minus 2 is negative 6. So now it's your turn again. I'm going to let you do these two on your own. So at this point, go ahead and pause the video for a moment and do example C and example D. Okay, let's move on. Models are great, but we'd like to move away from having to use a model every time we do a problem. So how can I add and subtract without models? If the signs are the same, there's a couple of basic steps to follow. Number 1, you should add the absolute values of the numbers. In other words, ignore the sign on the numbers and simply add them together. Then keep the sign on those numbers. So if they're both negative, the answer is negative. If they're both positive, the answer will be positive. So in our example, we have -6 plus -9. Since they have the same sign, we're going to add 6 and 9 together. 6 plus 9 is 15. So -6 plus -9 will be -15. If the signs are different, first you should subtract the smaller absolute value from the larger absolute value. In other words, ignore the signs and subtract larger minus smaller. Then keep the sign of the larger absolute value. Or in other words, did you have more negatives or more positives? That's the sign you should keep. So let's look at our example here. We have -13 plus 27. Since the signs are different, we subtract. So 27 take away 13 is 14. Since I have more positives than I do negatives, my answer is actually positive 14. Notice that if we had read this problem backwards, this says positive 27 minus 13. So when we did -13 plus 27, it's exactly the same as if the problem had been written like this. So let's wrap up by doing a few more examples together just to make sure that we've got the rules down. -8 minus 5. Both of these are negative. So that means we add 8 and 5 together and we keep the sign. 8 plus 5 is 13, so this is -13. For example 2, this is a +7 and a -25. Since the signs are different, we subtract 25, take away 7, which is 18. However, I have more negatives than I do positives, so my answer is -18. In problem 3, I again have different signs, which means I subtract. So 8 minus 8 is 0. 0 doesn't have a sign. Notice again, if we had read this problem backwards, that's +8, take away 8. Exactly the same problem. Problem 4. Our signs are the same in this problem. That means we add 23 and 18 together, which is 41, but we keep the negative sign. And for our last problem, -34 plus 10, we subtract since the signs are different, and then we keep the sign on the larger number. So 34 is worth more than 10, and my answer is negative. So just to summarize, there are a couple of different ways that we can actually add and subtract negatives. If we like, we can draw the tiles to help us to understand what we're doing. We can look at a number line and moving to the left or the right. Or we can use rules which say that if the signs are the same, we're going to add, and if the signs are different, we're basically going to subtract. Thank you for watching today's lesson, and I'll see you in class.